Hi there, it's Simon Gray from Career Codex, back with another weekly video. And today I'm talking about a Japanese proverb that really resonates with me because I lived and worked in Japan for 2 years. And the proverb is, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And I was prompted to think about this week from a video I watched and also a blog post that I read. And I'll explain the significance of the proverb a little bit later on. So first of all, I watched the new Tony Robbins film, which is called I Am Not Your Guru. And I don't know whether you've seen this. I recommend you take a look. Tony Robbins, of course, is a world-renowned life coach. I guess he's a motivator. He's an inspirator. And he's a towering figure of energy, I guess you'd call him. And I had the privilege to see him speak in London a number of years ago now, and I've closely followed some of the stuff that he does. And this video is pretty good. And by the way, I'm referring to my trusty iPad here just to make sure I get some of this stuff spot on. And in this video, it basically follows him throughout his journey, throughout his courses that he runs. This is where he gets a load of people in a room. And he basically taps into some of the things that are holding these people back. And watching the video was quite an emotional experience because some of the things people have been through are absolutely terrible, tragic circumstances that thankfully most of us could never actually imagine. And you know, it brought tears to my eyes a number of times because of the emotional stories that people shared. And what Tony was saying is, you know, we can never justify what's happened to somebody. You can never rationalize it. You know, we can't understand it, but what he's advising is there has to be a way to move forward because what's the other option? Well, there isn't another option. And what he said was this, which really resonated with me. He said that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And this is a viewpoint that says, well, whatever's happened to me, it's actually going to shape me moving forwards. I'm going to use it to help me and learn from it to move forwards. Which is a very, very different mindset to probably most of the ways people think about things, particularly when things go wrong. And the second thing I saw this week was a blog post by a guy called Tony Brooks. Tony is a business associate, a friend, and he'd written a blog post talking about 10 things that we can learn from sport. So people like Michael Jordan, the famous basketball player, you know, what can we learn from his experience in his sport? And Michael Jordan is famed for saying that you know, failure is what fueled his success. He failed more times than he succeeded, and that's what made him the success he was. And Tony, in his blog post, used this phrase, and he asked a question actually. He said, "Do you see challenges as being in your way or on your way?" Which I thought was great. Because if we see obstacles in our way as obstacles that we can't get past, well, we're stuck. But if we see them as simply something to climb over, to get beyond, to set us on our way, well, that's a completely different mindset. So the two Tonys, let's call them that, have it right, in my opinion. And going back to the Japanese proverb at the start of this video today, I lived in Japan. I trained in Japan. I do martial arts. I went over there to do an Aikido course with the Tokyo Riot Police. I'd read a book called Angry White Pajamas. You can find this on Amazon. It's about this 11-month boot camp that takes you from white belt to black belt. Only about probably 200 people in the world have done this thing. And I read the book, sold my house, sold my car, went over there and did it. And this proverb really resonated with me every day because quite literally in Aikido you are thrown, so you literally fall down, not 7 times, but probably more like 77 times a day, and you've got to get up 78, let alone 8. So I think a really useful message that served me well during my life and continues to serve me well. I want to share a couple of stories with you now, and the first story is a personal story. And about, well, 4 or 5 years ago now, 2011, I hired a builder to do some work on my house, was about to get married, baby on the way, needed more space. To cut a long story short, this builder did me a disservice and basically did a botched job on the property, which meant that I had to go and get another builder to do the job again, which was very costly, and then spent 5 years in legal proceedings trying to recover the money I'd initially spent. And, you know, I'd researched this builder, I'd taken a recommendation, but you never quite know bit like taking your car to the garage. Unless you're a mechanic, you don't necessarily know what the problem is or how to fix it, and you trust that people will do the job they say they're going to do. Anyway, what happened is that just before we were about to go to court, this builder liquidated his business. As a result, there was no recompense, and there never will be. And for me, the initial emotional response, and that's what we have as human beings, was, why me? It's not fair. How can this happen? There's no justice here. But in actual fact, that didn't serve me. And that would hinder me, not just in that situation in life, but in my personal and professional life moving forwards. And the important point here is that when things don't go our way, we naturally have an emotional response. That's what we've created as human beings to help us generally. The fight or flight mechanism is a prime example. And my emotional response was as just said. So what I had to try and do was to interject and to circumvent that emotional response and to put something in the middle that said, well, okay, this is bad, this has happened, this isn't good, but what can I learn from that experience? And what I realized is I'd learned a lot about contract law. I'd learned, more importantly, a lot about myself and my ability to be resilient, to stay the course, to get through some tough times, to get past obstacles, to move forward in an empowered way. And I can now, as I'm doing now on camera, I can actually now think about this thing and smile about it and talk about it, which I couldn't do for a period of time. So let's now talk about the job market. Let's apply some of this thinking to what it means to be in the job market, because that's what Career Codex is all about, helping people to navigate the job market successfully. So think about the job market. When people come onto the job market, it's a personal experience because it happens to them as opposed to their organisations that they've worked for. It's even more personal if there's financial pressure because you're not currently in a job looking for that next position. And of course, the job market is fraught with rejection. It's about people on both sides of the transaction, which means there's nothing you can do at A that will guarantee you B. It's a game of probability, and a game of probability takes time. And this is the thing quite a lot of people find difficult, to stay in the job market and to take action consistently over a period of time. And this is why through my Career Codex, Executive Edge and Jumpstart programs, one of the first things I emphasize is not CV or resume writing, it's actually psychology. Because you might, particularly if you're at the executive level, have to stay the course for 3 months, 6 months, maybe 9 months. And what that means is not a stop-start approach, but a consistent approach to take action that will deliver the end result over a period of time. What tends to happen though in the job market, and particularly at the executive level, is that people use what happens to them as fuel for their fire, or they use it as they absorb the negativity and it stops them taking action. And a prime example is, I was talking to somebody the other day, they told me they felt good about the job market at this time. And I said, well, why? Well, because I had an interview a couple of weeks ago, the interview went well. And I said, well, what would have happened if the interview had gone bad? If that interview hadn't gone as well as you'd expected? That may have cost this person 2 weeks of their time to get over that until the next good thing happened. But in the executive job market, you can't think like that. And what I encourage my clients to do is to not take rejection personally, to actually interrogate the rejection, to understand what can be learnt from it, and then to use that knowledge to move forward in a more effective way. So to really circumvent that emotional response, which, if left unchecked, often says, rejected from this process, not shortlisted for this job, that means I haven't got the skills or I'm not a good candidate. That's not the case. It just means that wasn't right for you at that particular point in time. So one of my clients that I worked with a little while back, he really summed things up well for me, because and probably better than I can do. Because he really got what this is all about, and he really got what success in the executive job market is really all about. Because we can't change the job market, we can't influence it, it's too big, it's out of our control. And what he said was this, again referring to the iPad here, he said that I realised, this is his words, I realised that it's not the job market that changes, it's me that changes. And that's the important point. And that's what this video post, the blog post that goes with it, the podcast that goes with it is all about this week. If we think about it, if we interject in between the situation and our natural emotional response, we have an opportunity to influence what that response is. And we have an opportunity to influence what we make that mean and how we choose to move forward. So in the words of the title of this week's video, you will fall down. We all do. But it's whether you choose to get back up and how many times you're prepared to get back up that really, really counts. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing at YouTube, leaving a comment in the box below to let me know what you thought. If you've got any questions about your job search, let me know. And if you'd like to connect to me on LinkedIn, my username is Simon Gray ACA. So that's it for today. Take care, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.